For 25 years, that basement door stayed shut. Locked, silent, and seemingly unyielding, it held secrets that had been tucked away long before I could even imagine. Every creak of the steps leading down, every groan of the old hinges made me hesitate, even in my own home. The doorknob was cold in my hand, rough with rust and years of neglect. Dust swirled in the dim light, and the smell of old wood and damp stone wrapped around me like an old blanket. I had tried countless times to open it over the years, sometimes for curiosity, sometimes for necessity, sometimes just to see if the lock had loosened. Always it resisted, stubborn and silent, as if it were guarding a secret only meant for the shadows. But that morning, something changed. The lock clicked with a simple turn, the door swung open with a surprising ease, and the air from the basement, musty, dark, and heavy with the past, welcomed me. I froze, heart racing, every memory of hesitation and fear rushing back. I never expected what waited behind that door, not after 25 years. Today, I want to tell you the story of a basement door that stayed closed for a quarter century, and what I found the moment it finally gave way. This isn't just about a stubborn lock or an old room. It's about the surprises life hides in the quietest corners, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. I'm sharing this story with you because these are true, heartfelt experiences from my own life, full of mystery, courage, and discovery. And here on Grandma Cozy Stories, we share stories like this every single day. Tales that warm your heart, make you think, and sometimes make you gasp. So if you enjoy these cozy, real-life stories, go ahead and subscribe, and join me as we uncover the hidden corners of life, family, and memory. You'll never guess what came out of the shadows after all those years. The morning light crept softly through the frost-covered windows, casting pale stripes across the kitchen floor. My slippers shuffled quietly on the cold tiles as I filled the kettle with water, the familiar hiss of steam rising like a gentle reminder that the day had begun. I sipped my tea, savoring the warmth against the winter chill, but my eyes kept wandering to the basement door at the far end of the hallway. For 25 years it had remained stubbornly closed. Rust clung to its hinges, the knob cold and rough under my fingers. Dust lay thick on the frame, disturbed only by the occasional broom sweep or the brush of my sleeve. Every time I passed it, a shiver ran down my spine, a mix of curiosity and unease. I would glance at it during chores, sometimes pause, sometimes mutter a small prayer to the angels I imagined waiting above. That morning, something made me pause longer than usual. Perhaps it was the sharp crack of ice against the front steps, or the faint smell of earth that drifted up from the vent. I approached slowly, each creak of the wooden stairs echoing through the empty house. My hand brushed the doorknob. It was colder than usual, almost as if it carried the memory of decades past. I hesitated, heart thumping, and for a brief moment considered turning away. But then I noticed a faint outline in the dust on the floor, a mark I hadn't seen in all these years. Tiny scuffs, almost like footprints, leading closer to the door. And that's when I noticed something I hadn't seen in all these years. I can still picture my childhood home, a small house on a quiet street, where every neighbor's face was familiar, every door held a story. Curiosity was my constant companion, sometimes praised, sometimes scolded. I remember the way I would sneak into the corners of the attic, peer behind cupboards, and press my ear to locked doors, imagining the secrets they held. My parents taught me patience, courage, and respect for what belonged to others, but they also encouraged me to explore, to notice, and to remember. One winter, I discovered a small trapdoor beneath the staircase, long forgotten and coated in dust. The hinges groaned when I tried to lift it, and my heart raced with the thrill of the unknown. I didn't dare open it fully, but I would visit it often, imagining stories of hidden treasures, secret letters, or tiny rooms where forgotten things waited for discovery. That curiosity stayed with me, quietly shaping the way I moved through the world. It taught me that the smallest details mattered: a scuff on a floor, a faint smell, the way light shifted in a corner. Those lessons of observation and courage became the lens through which I would one day face the mystery of our basement door. Little did I know, my curiosity would be tested in ways I couldn't imagine. As an adult, I built a home of my own, full of warmth, laughter, and small comforts. My marriage brought love and companionship, and the house filled with children's laughter, the smell of baking bread, and the quiet rhythm of ordinary days. Yet, even in this comfortable life, the basement door remained, a silent, stubborn presence at the edge of our household. At first, it was simply a quirk, a door that refused to yield. Over time, it became a quiet fault line, a subtle reminder that not everything in our home or in life was fully understood. Occasionally, I would hear small noises, the scrape of wood, a faint draft from the crack beneath the door. Sometimes objects misplaced near it would appear mysteriously elsewhere. I never spoke much of it, fearing it might seem foolish or petty, but in my heart I knew that the basement held stories yet untold. Life continued, steady and comforting, but with that persistent little mystery lingering in the background. For 25 years, the door stayed shut, until one day it didn't. It started with a sound, a faint creak, almost imperceptible, coming from the basement, as though the house itself had whispered my name. I had been looking for my granddaughter's missing mittens, a small thing tucked somewhere along the stairs, and the search had brought me close to the old basement door. My heart fluttered, not with panic, but with a strange, familiar anticipation. I hadn't touched that door in years, not really. Every attempt in the past had been met with stubborn resistance, rusty hinges groaning, the lock refusing to yield. But something about that morning felt different. Perhaps it was the anniversary of the day my late husband had first bought this house, or the quiet emptiness of the snow outside, pressing me forward. I gripped the doorknob, cold and rough beneath my fingers, and felt the familiar resistance. But with a steady push and a careful turn, the lock gave way more easily than it ever had. Dust puffed into the air like the exhale of a long-held secret. I leaned closer, peering into the dimness, the smell of earth and time curling into my nostrils. The anticipation, the tension, wrapped around me like a heavy shawl. I thought I was prepared for anything, but I wasn't. The first thing I noticed was the rust. The hinges creaked sharply as I nudged the door open, a sound that seemed to echo for decades. My hand shook slightly, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. Each step down the stairs was measured and careful. The stone felt cold and unforgiving under my slippers. Years of hesitation and whispered family warnings played in my mind. "Some doors are better left closed," my father had said long ago. And my mother, ever practical, had added, "Curiosity can be dangerous, but courage will guide you if you're careful." I pressed those memories like talismans against the rising fear. As I reached the bottom, I noticed faint disturbances in the dust on the floor. Small patterns, subtle and almost invisible, led toward a corner of the basement I had never fully examined. I knelt, tracing a finger along them. Paper fragments, tiny and yellowed with age, peeked out from beneath a forgotten crate. The basement seemed alive, holding its breath as though waiting for me to understand. And then I heard a whisper I hadn't noticed in years. I froze, straining my ears. The sound could have been the house settling, but it felt deliberate, purposeful. My heart pounded, echoing through the cool basement air. Shadows stretched across the walls, shifting with the dim light filtering from a single dusty window. I began to sift through the fragments of paper, discovering faded letters tied with twine and envelopes addressed in handwriting I didn't immediately recognize. Names, dates, and messages hidden from view all these years hinted at a life tucked away in secrecy. My mind raced. What stories had been sealed behind this door, and why had no one ever spoken of them? Fear mixed with curiosity pulling me forward. Each discovery deepened the mystery, and I realized someone, or something, was waiting for me. Memories of past attempts, warnings from my parents, and small mysteries from my own life flickered through my mind. The basement had become a character itself, watching, holding secrets, and testing my resolve. I couldn't turn back now, not when the trail had begun to reveal itself. Time seemed to bend as I explored deeper. Every object told a story: old jars, discarded furniture, and the faint smell of mildew mixed with something warmer, almost familiar. My fingers brushed across an old family heirloom I had never known existed, a small wooden box, locked, yet heavy with promise. I paused, feeling the weight of generations pressing down, the sense of both anticipation and dread tightening around me. Could I uncover these secrets without disturbing the balance of the family I loved? Would revealing what lay here cause harm, or would it finally bring understanding? A sudden draft made the lights flicker, shadows dancing across the walls. I held my breath, imagining the eyes of ancestors watching, the echoes of past footsteps guiding me. I couldn't go back now without knowing the truth. Outside, the snow had begun to fall again, heavier this time, pressing against the windows like silent witnesses. The day was slipping away, and I could feel the pressure mounting, not just of the winter afternoon, but of family routines and responsibilities waiting above. I had to act quickly, to uncover the full story before the moment passed, before uncertainty grew into regret. Every step I took in the basement now carried urgency. Letters, shadows, objects, and dust patterns led me toward the corner I had once feared most. I checked the clock above the stove upstairs in my mind, feeling the pressure of the hour. The whispers seemed louder now, urgent, insistent, as if the house itself was urging me forward. The tension built with each passing minute. I tightened my scarf, adjusted my grip on the flashlight, and advanced with deliberate care. Each shadow seemed to flicker with possibility. Every object could hold the next clue. I knew the answers were close, that the long-hidden secrets of this basement would soon emerge. I could feel the clock ticking, and I knew this would be the moment everything changed. The basement felt different now. The air was heavier, the dust thicker, but there was also a stillness I hadn't noticed before, as if the house itself had been holding its breath for 25 years. I shone my flashlight around the corners, and my eyes landed on a stack of old crates I had never dared to move. They were tied with fraying ropes, marked with dates that predated my marriage, my children, even my memory. I knelt and untied the first crate. The lid creaked, and a faint musty odor drifted upward. Inside were letters, carefully folded, tied with delicate ribbon. Some were written in my grandmother's elegant hand, others in a script I didn't recognize. There were photographs, yellowed and curling at the edges, showing people I hadn't known lived in this house, people whose lives had been quietly entwined with ours long before I arrived. A small wooden box caught my eye, its surface carved with intricate designs that had faded with time. I opened it and discovered a collection of heirlooms, a silver locket, a key, a tiny journal. Each item seemed to hum with memory, whispering fragments of a story that had been carefully hidden away. As I flipped through the journal, I realized the truth. The basement had been a repository for family secrets, kept safe by the generations before me. Tales of love, sacrifice, and courage I had never known, hidden under layers of dust and time. I felt a mixture of shock and awe, sadness and wonder as the full picture began to emerge. Everything I thought I knew about our home was about to change. The revelation brought an immediate weight. I could feel it pressing down on my chest as I imagined how my children would react, how the family might respond to secrets that had lain dormant for decades. Should I share the discovery now or wait? Could I balance honesty with protection, revelation with discretion? Practical obstacles also loomed. Some of the boxes were precariously stacked, threatening to topple. Dust stirred into the air, making my eyes water and cough. I had to navigate the cramped basement carefully, balancing fragile heirlooms in my hands, ensuring nothing was damaged. Every step, every careful motion was a negotiation with history itself. The emotional strain was heavy. I spent hours sorting letters, examining photographs, and piecing together the timeline. The basement became both a sanctuary and a challenge, a place of wonder and tension. And all the while I knew that once I revealed these discoveries, the family dynamic could shift. Old grievances might surface, questions might be asked that had no easy answers. I had to decide, protect the past or share the truth. Outside, the wind howled against the windows, rattling the panes and reminding me that the world beyond the basement continued on its routine pace. Upstairs, family movements echoed faintly, footsteps, doors opening, laughter. Each sound reminded me that the clock was ticking, that secrecy had its limits. The basement, once a silent witness, now seemed almost alive. Shadows stretched along the walls with the flicker of my flashlight, and the creaking floorboards echoed beneath each careful step. The cold seeped into my bones, mingling with the tension that had built steadily over weeks. I imagined neighbors noticing my trips to the basement, hearing my quiet murmurs, wondering why I was spending so much time in the dark. The thought made me pause, reminding me that curiosity always carries scrutiny and bravery always carries risk. Internally, my fear was palpable. What if I was wrong about the importance of these discoveries? What if exposing them caused more harm than good? Yet a quiet voice inside insisted this was the right path. The tension of the past, the echoes of whispers, the weight of forgotten history, they all demanded acknowledgement. I wondered if I'd made a mistake, or if I was finally doing what was right. I sat at the bottom of the basement stairs, the dim light casting long shadows across the crates and boxes. The air was cold, damp, and heavy, carrying the scent of age and forgotten years. My hands rested on my knees, shaking slightly, not from the chill, but from the weight of what I had discovered. Letters, photographs, heirlooms, fragments of lives hidden in the shadows for decades. I couldn't stop thinking of the possibilities, of the consequences, of how the family might react. Isolation pressed in around me. Upstairs, the house carried on as usual, children's laughter, dishes clinking, the familiar hum of a winter morning. But down here, in the quiet, I felt utterly alone. Every instinct told me to step back, to leave the secret sealed, to preserve the comfort of ignorance. Yet another voice, quieter but insistent, whispered courage into my heart. I thought of my parents' lessons: patience, bravery, and the importance of seeing the full truth before making a judgment. I remembered my own childhood curiosity, the hours spent exploring attics and closets, listening to whispered stories, discovering hidden corners. Courage had always been about stepping forward despite fear, about facing the unknown with dignity. Every time I reached for another crate, my heart raced and doubt clawed at me. What if I was opening a wound that could never heal? What if revealing these secrets caused more harm than good? I closed my eyes and pictured the smiles of my children, the warmth of our family gathered for Christmas, the laughter of friends who had long passed. I realized something. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was the decision to act despite it. The basement had kept its secrets for 25 years, waiting for the right moment, waiting for me to understand, to witness, to honor. If I walked away now, the secret would stay buried forever. I rose slowly from the stairs, determination replacing hesitation. The basement, once a place of uncertainty and quiet dread, had become a threshold to understanding, to connection, to truth. I resolved that I would explore every corner, read every letter, and uncover every story tucked away in the shadows. Practical preparation helped steady my nerves. I moved crates carefully, dusting off surfaces and arranging boxes so nothing could fall. My flashlight illuminated the dim corners, revealing items I hadn't dared to examine before. Small wooden boxes, carefully tied letters, photographs that seemed to whisper their own history. I handled each object with reverence, aware that they carried the weight of decades and the hearts of those who came before. Emotionally, I steadied myself with reminders of resilience and courage, memories of childhood lessons, early adventures, and the quiet bravery of family members whispered strength to me. Every step forward, every letter unfolded, reminded me why this mattered, not for curiosity alone, but for honor, love, and the continuity of our family story. I double-checked the locks on the crates, brushed the dust from the journals, and prepared to carry the discoveries upstairs to share with the family when the time came. The tension was electric, a quiet hum of anticipation vibrating through the cold basement air. I knew that opening the door would change everything, forever. I stood at the base of the basement stairs, the flashlight trembling slightly in my hands. Everything seemed suspended in time, the dust motes dancing in the beam, the cold stone walls pressing inward, and the faint lingering scent of earth and old wood. I had spent years imagining this moment, wondering what could possibly lie behind a door that had resisted me for 25 years. The final crate, the heaviest one, rested against the far wall. Its lid was etched with delicate patterns worn smooth by time. I knelt and lifted it, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside lay a trove of letters, journals, and small trinkets, tokens of a family life I had never known. There were photographs of my mother as a young woman, smiling with a man whose presence I had only known from vague family stories, and letters detailing sacrifices, secret loves, and hidden acts of courage that had shaped our family's past. I picked up a small wooden box, opening it carefully. Inside, a silver locket glimmered faintly, its chain tangled with a ribboned journal. I opened the journal, my fingers tracing the faded ink. It told of a love story lost to time, a tale of loyalty and protection, and a promise kept quietly for decades. The emotions embedded in these words, longing, fear, joy, regret, swept over me like the winter wind outside, sharp and unrelenting. Each item I uncovered deepened the story, revealing connections I had never imagined. There were gifts hidden for children never born, letters to loved ones never sent, and photographs capturing moments frozen in secrecy. Every detail carried meaning, and suddenly the basement was no longer just a room. It was a vault of memory, courage, and love that had silently shaped the lives of everyone who had walked this house before me. The shadows danced in the corners, and I felt the weight of generations pressing around me. This was more than discovery. It was understanding, revelation, and reconciliation all at once. I realized that the door had stayed closed not out of neglect, but out of protection, out of love. And at that moment, I understood why it had stayed closed all these years. When I finally carried the letters, journals, and heirlooms upstairs, the family gathered around, curious and tentative. My children and grandchildren leaned in as I shared what I had discovered, recounting the stories embedded in the photographs, the journals, the silver locket. Faces shifted from disbelief to awe, eyes widening at the revelation of lives intertwined with our own, stories that had waited silently for decades to be told. Conversations unfolded slowly at first, measured with care and respect. Questions were asked, some answered, some left lingering for reflection. Laughter and tears mingled as we traced our family lineage through the documents, understanding the sacrifices and courage that had built the foundation of our home. The basement, once a place of mystery and tension, became a shared space of connection and memory. Practical matters also fell into place. Crates were reorganized, fragile items carefully preserved, and letters stored in boxes that could be revisited without risk. The house seemed to breathe more freely, lighter somehow, as though the air had been cleared not just of dust, but of the weight of secrecy. The stories revealed strengthened our bonds. We celebrated the holidays with a new sense of gratitude, the warmth of family amplified by understanding, respect, and the quiet joy of uncovering truths together. The house felt warmer than it ever had, and so did my heart. Looking back, I see the basement not as a room of mystery, but as a symbol of life itself. Some doors are hard to open, some secrets heavy with years of silence, but courage, quiet, persistent courage, guides the way. Patience and curiosity taught me to notice the small details, footprints in dust, faded letters, the subtle hints that whispered the story of the past. I learned that curiosity isn't mere nosiness. It's a willingness to understand, to honor what has come before, and to face the unknown despite fear. Patience allows discovery to unfold in its own time. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's stepping forward even when the cold wind of uncertainty presses against you. Trust in oneself and in the lessons of life brings clarity and connection. Life often hides lessons in ordinary places, a basement door, a forgotten journal, a small locket. It reminds us that history, love, and memory carry meaning long after the voices that created them have quieted. By following the footprints of the past, by opening doors we've been afraid to touch, we not only discover the story of others, but also the depths of our own hearts. And if you ever face a door you're afraid to open, remember it might be your next great discovery. As I shared the basement story with my viewers, the messages poured in, heartfelt, thoughtful, and surprising. One reader wrote, "This reminded me of my own hidden family stories tucked away in attics and closets. Thank you for inspiring me to look." Another commented, "You're so brave to uncover the past, even when it seemed scary. I can only hope to have your courage one day." A few shared memories of their own, dusty trunks filled with letters, forgotten family recipes, or photographs of ancestors whose lives had been quietly remarkable. Some mentioned relatives who had long passed, whispering secrets of love, hardship, and resilience that only emerged when someone dared to notice. Even strangers found connection in the story. They wrote about how they had learned to value the small details of their homes, the objects that carried memory, and the courage it takes to confront history with dignity. The ripple effect was unmistakable. Stories like these reminded viewers that they weren't alone in their curiosity or their awe of family history. A basement door, a dusty locket, a faded journal, all could spark reflection, conversation, and connection. The warmth in the comments reminded me, uncovering the past isn't just about discovery, it's about sharing, inspiring, and connecting with others across time, space, and generations. The house felt alive in a new way after that winter. The basement, once a place of shadows and uncertainty, had become a space of memory, reflection, and even gentle celebration. I began to notice corners I'd long ignored. Little nooks where sunlight touched old shelves or dust motes danced like tiny fairies. There were hints of other mysteries waiting to be discovered. The attic, full of forgotten boxes and vintage trunks, whispered possibilities. Old wardrobes, loose floorboards, and even a hidden garden shed held the promise of stories long forgotten, stories that might teach courage, patience, or joy. Family gatherings took on a new light. We shared tales inspired by the basement find, remembering loved ones, laughing at small mishaps, and honoring the resilience of those who came before us. Every holiday felt richer, every small object in the house carrying layers of meaning, as if history itself was speaking softly to us. And I felt ready for the next adventure, the next mystery, the next story waiting to be uncovered in the quiet corners of life. There is always a secret tucked in shadow or dust, waiting for someone curious enough, brave enough to discover it. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe to join us on Grandma Cozy Stories, where we uncover heartfelt tales from every corner of life. Share your own family discoveries below. We love hearing from you. Next time, I'll tell you about the attic that kept a secret for 50 years, and the moment it finally revealed a story that changed everything. You won't want to miss it. Grandma Cozy Stories logo, gentle music, end screen prompts, playlist links, and an invitation to watch the next video.